Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so today we're tackling something pretty huge, and I gotta admit, a little unnerving. Artificial intelligence and what it means for the future of audio, particularly podcasts.
It's a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, and from what I'm reading in this source material, we're talking about AI that can create podcasts so real you might not know if you're hearing a human host or, well, an algorithm.
Yeah, that's not science fiction anymore.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So how is this even possible?
Well, it all comes down to these incredibly advanced AI tools being developed, things like Notebook LM and 11 Labs. Ever heard of them?
Honestly, no.
Not surprising, but they're kind of a big deal. These tools use some seriously complex algorithms like neural networks and stuff to analyze and then replicate like perfectly all the little things that make up a human voice.
So not just stringing words together, but like the tone, the pauses, even the ums and ahs we all throw in there.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so groundbreaking for podcasting. Imagine listening to a podcast where the narrator sounds exactly like, I don't know, your favorite actor or even a historical figure.
Whoa, that's kind of blowing my mind a little. But I can see some ethical red flags popping up already.
Oh, absolutely. There are massive ethical considerations here. The source material brought up consent, for one. Just because we can replicate someone's voice doesn't mean we should without their permission.
Right, like using someone's voice without their knowledge is just wrong. And what about the integrity of podcasting itself? I mean, if AI voices become so real, they're indistinguishable from humans.
Well, that's where things get really interesting and honestly a bit concerning.
Yeah, like almost like a deep fake, but for audio, right?
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And just like with deepfakes, the potential for misuse is huge.
It's scary to even think about.
It is. Think about it. In a world where anyone's voice can be perfectly replicated, how do we know what's real anymore?
Right, how do we trust what we're hearing?
Exactly. And that's where this idea of an authenticity crisis comes in, which the source material talks about. It's like, are we headed for a point where we just can't trust any audio content?
An authenticity crisis.
Yeah.
Man, that's a heavy term. But it fits, doesn't it? I mean, we're already seeing this in other areas, right?
Absolutely. Look at the news, social media, even politics. It's getting harder and harder to separate fact from fiction. And now with AI audio, it's like that problem is about to explode.
And what's even more concerning is that, unlike with video, there's not really a way to tell if something is real or fake audio, right?
Not easily, no. At least not yet.
So what do we do? I mean, is there any way to prevent this from happening or at least, like, mitigate the damage?
Well, it's tricky. But the source material does highlight some potential solutions. One thing that came up was the idea of like an authenticity verification system.
Okay, so like a way to prove that a podcast is actually made by a human.
Yeah, something like that, like a digital signature or watermark that confirms the audio hasn't been manipulated.
That's a pretty wild concept. But I guess with technology advancing so rapidly, we might need equally innovative solutions, right?
Right. But technology can only take us so far. We also need to think about the human side of this equation.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
I mean, we can't just rely on algorithms to solve this. We need to become more critical listeners ourselves. We need to be more aware of the potential for AI manipulation and develop the skills to spot it.
So like media literacy, but for audio.
Exactly. We need to be just as discerning about what we listen to as we are about what we read or watch online.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about some of the downsides, but this source material also mentions some potential upsides of AI in podcasting, like it could make podcasting more accessible.
Yeah, that was really interesting. The source material pointed out that one of the biggest hurdles for new podcasters is the technical side. Like, not everyone's an audio engineer, right?
Totally. I mean, editing, mixing, mastering, it can be a lot, especially if you're just starting out.
Right, and that's where AI can come in. Imagine AI tools that could handle all the technical stuff automatically, making it super easy for anyone to create a professional-sounding podcast.
Okay, yeah, that would be a game changer. Like democratizing podcasting almost.
Exactly. It could empower so many new voices and perspectives to be heard.
But I do wonder, if everyone can easily make a podcast, does that devalue the medium in a way? Like, does it make it harder for quality content to stand out?
It's a valid concern, but I also think there's a real opportunity here. I mean, think about it. What if, instead of replacing human creativity, AI actually enhances it?
That's an interesting way to look at it. So instead of being afraid of AI, we should be thinking about how to use it to make podcasting even better.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting because the source material, it goes a step further. It talks about how AI is developing so fast that we might be approaching a point where it can think in ways we can't even
Okay,
grasp.
now that is kind of freaking me out. Are we talking like super intelligent AI here, the kind that takes over the world?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, if AI can process information and make connections at speeds we can't even comprehend, what does that mean for our understanding of intelligence itself?
Right. It's like, what even is intelligence if a machine can outperform us on every level?
And that takes us to another mind-blowing point from the source material. It talks about how this rapid AI development could lead to something called an existential crisis for creativity.
An existential crisis.
For creativity.
Okay, now you have to explain that one.
Well, think about it. If AI can create art, music, write books, even produce podcasts that are indistinguishable from human-made content, what does that say about the value of human creativity?
I see what you mean. It's like, if a machine can do it just as well, if not better, why do we even bother creating?
Exactly, and that's the existential crisis. It forces us to ask some really fundamental questions about what it means to be human, what makes us unique, and ultimately what gives our lives meaning in a world where machines can seemingly do it all.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone from AI mimicking voices to AI potentially outsmarting us and even challenging our very sense of self. That's a lot to unpack in one deep dive.
It really is. But I think the most important takeaway here is that the future of podcasting, and really the future of creativity itself, is not something that's being decided for us. We're actively shaping it with every choice we make, every technology we embrace, and every question we dare to ask.
So true. And on that note, to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. How do you feel about AI's growing role in the creative spaces you love, like podcasting? Are you excited? A little terrified? Share your thoughts with us. Because one thing's for sure, the world of audio is changing faster than ever, and we're all along for the ride.